My name is Bernadette. Hello, everyone. My name is Bernadette Smith. I am CEO of Equality Institute, and I wanted to welcome you to 5 Things in 15 Minutes, in which we talk about good vibes in DEI. That's good vibes in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and corporate social responsibility. Because what I have found is that there are a lot of negative stories out there, stories about what's going wrong. But there's also a lot of really cool stuff happening. And that's what I love to find are really cool initiatives, progressive policies and plans to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion within organizations, countries, and around the world. And I find these stories and write about them each week in my newsletter, 5 Things, which goes out on Saturday mornings. You can subscribe at 5thingsdei.com. And then on Monday, I'm joined with a special guest in which we talk about 5 things in just 15 minutes. So today I am joined by Erma. Erma, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hello, my name is Erma. My pronouns are they, them, theirs. I am a trans non binary individual living a really great life in Chicago with a great community. And I'm really excited to be here and join you in this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Irma. And thank you for being one of our facilitators. We're really lucky and grateful to have you on the team.
Yes.
So, we talk about good vibes on this show, but the reality is that there's still a lot of crappy stuff that happens. And this past weekend was no exception. There was, I'm sure many of you know, I want to just acknowledge that there was a really hateful, racist mass shooting in Buffalo, New York that specifically targeted Black folks. And I don't want to just get into the good news without acknowledging that there's a lot of trauma out there, especially experienced by Black folks and other BIPOC folks and the LGBTQ plus community as well. So I just want to acknowledge that your employees may be having a hard time, and to make sure that you give them space to grieve and that you show your support. And, I'll leave it at that. All right. So this week I started by writing about some mistakes I've made. I don't always get it right, and I made a few mistakes that I was called out on, and I want to own those. So one of the mistakes that I made was in a newsletter in which it was talking about Milk Stork, which is a company that ships human milk produced by nursing parents when they're traveling. And so I use the term human milk now. In the newsletter, the term breast milk was used, but not all people who nurse are women, and not or moms, and not all people who nurse use breasts. Sometimes they use chests. There are trans and non-binary folks who nurse and have produced human milk. So that the phrasing that was used that I wrote in the newsletter was not completely inclusive, and I want to acknowledge that and thank you to the person who sent me a note about it. And then the second mistake I made was that the posts on the Equality Institute LinkedIn page don't have alt text. Now, alt text is used to help people who are visually impaired know what the image represents. And those folks might be using a screen reader, and if the image doesn't have alt text, then the screen reader can't tell the person who's visually impaired what the image is, and that person doesn't get the complete picture of the story. So that is something we are working on, and my team and I have built in new systems of checklists and more checks and balances to keep these mistakes from happening in the future. But I want to take accountability and responsibility, and I appreciate you all out there holding me and the rest of the team accountable. So thank you. Irma, can you relate to any of this stuff?
I actually can relate to it, especially when it comes to posting on social media. I made this video, I was doing a poem, and, someone, after I posted it, they're like, can you add captions? And I normally am really good at doing it, but as you mentioned, even in the newsletter, like adding those checks and balances, because those things, like we can overlook it sometimes because um, we're different. We have different levels of ability, and we can overlook, like, creating content that's accessible to all people. And so I immediately just went and these things are like adding captions. It's an app that I use, and it's pretty intuitive, and it's something that we can do to make our content more inclusive for everyone. And so being called in like that by someone who enjoys my content and they just want to be able to experience it. And so that's something that I am able to implement in just like my daily life. And so it's really beautiful to be able to add that to how I view things and be able to share it with other people as well.
Exactly. And you know what? There are a million ways to be inclusive. And we can't expect to know them all, right? So we're all still learning.
Yeah.
And I think if we acknowledge our mistakes, it gives people others permission to acknowledge their own mistakes, and we all move forward. There's nothing to be shameful about. It's just about taking responsibility and moving on and
Yeah.
fixing it. So off we go. All right, so let's get to the 5 things here. Okay, so the first story is about Salesforce, which is about, it has recently announced that all of their job postings will no longer be associated with a specific office or a specific location, but instead be posted according to time zone, which I think is really cool because we've seen obviously remote work, hybrid work, all much more common. We see Uber saying you work from anywhere, other companies doing the same thing. This is giving, I think, the best of both worlds. It's a great compromise solution. Salesforce still wants people in the office at least some of the time, but at least there's flexibility within a specific region or time zone in which to live. So I think this is a really nice model.
Yeah, I think it's actually a great model to for companies to look at what their needs are and how they can also bring in staff's needs as well, because it adds some flexibility and some movement and a wider pool of people to apply for these jobs as well. So thinking of different ways to be accessible is amazing. So it was really great to see that.
Yeah, exactly. And especially because there are some, major tech hubs like New York and San Francisco, which are really expensive to live in, right? So if those employees can stay in those time zones but work from a location, maybe a smaller city that is more affordable, you're right, it does expand the pipeline of talent,
Mhm.
and it just offers much more flexibility. So good news from Salesforce. All right, so next up is Walmart. Now that's a company we don't often find here on 5 things. But what I love about this policy, they have a new policy where every single Walmart employee and their family members has access to 24/7 confidential counseling services with licensed therapists at no cost. That is hundreds of thousands of people who are impacted by this benefit.
Yeah, and it's really important as well to that they're bringing in family. Working from my experience of a customer in Walmart, I can tell the staff needs support, and especially with what happened over the weekend in Boston. These companies being able to provide support to their employees that may have some fear and reservation, and also like family members who um, are impacted by this as well. And so having access to therapy and mental health resources is really important for Walmart and many other companies as well.
Absolutely. I think it's great. I mean, again, this is hundreds of thousands of people. There have been a lot of people suffering for a lot of reasons for years now, and being able to have this access, especially after traumatic incidents,
Mhm.
is incredible. And these are employees, many of whom are part-time. They just don't have these resources otherwise. And Walmart has really been stepping up their benefits over the past few years in particular. Okay, next up is Target, which has a Pride collection this year with collaboration with Tomboy X. So Tomboy X is a clothing company that specializes in underwear and for queer folks, especially queer women, non-binary, trans folks. I wear Tomboy X sometimes. I have some, but their collaboration with Target is pretty cool because they're offering their product at a lower cost, and they're even in retailers. People will be able to buy binders and packing underwear, which are products that some queer folks really like. And having it available at the mass retailers
Mhm.
at a big box store is unheard of.
Yeah, this is really important for people who are in smaller cities, have less access to resources, that can be able to go different places and get these items. Um, and so to be able to go to Target to order these things is really amazing.
It is. I think you have a friend in the background who's might be changing.
Yeah.
All good. Just didn't want to give our viewers a show.
My roommate says hello.
All right. So next up is a new program which pays new grads a full tech salary to work at nonprofits. So this is a philanthropic organization started by a former Google CEO, which is paying these grads competitive salaries to build this innovative tech. So one project that's come out of this is technology that helps people navigate the criminal justice system. And that specifically has reduced technical violations and warrants for rearrest by more than 50%. There's another product that's come out of this program that's used by child crisis hotlines to help children reach out for help by text. Like, it's really cool innovation is coming because this rich dude is paying college grads to build really innovative tech, and I think it's very cool.
Yeah, I think people who have resources to be able to redistribute those to provide access for new grads, because it really impacts a lot of people in these different ways. For new grads to have access to competitive salaries and to be able to be a part of these projects is really amazing.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. And our last story for today comes from Mattel, which is actually one of my favorite companies to follow. They have a new Barbie with hearing aids. And Barbie has, there's a lot of different kinds of Barbie that represent a lot of different kinds of people. And this is just another way that Barbie continues to expand what's possible in terms of representation.
Yeah, I think one of the other times I've been on here, we've talked about Barbie, and and so it's really amazing to see the evolution of Barbie and all the different ways that they're also being inclusive with this product that really is a part of a lot of children's lives. It was a part of mine, and so to be able to see this is really beautiful.
It absolutely is. I totally agree. I played with Barbies when I was a little kid too, and yeah, I mean there was absolutely no diversity in Barbies back then, but imagine the difference it would have made in my experience as a kid. Um,
Right.
Mattel even has these dolls now called Creatable World with no identifiable gender or clothing. It's all essentially appropriate for all genders, and they can mix and match, and it's essentially like a gender doll. It's
Oh,
very
that's
cool.
cool.
Anyway, that's a sixth thing for today. There you go, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me, Irma. Thank you all for watching. If you don't already subscribe to the 5 Things newsletter, you can join at 5thingsdei.com and catch up with us on Mondays, in which we talk about good vibes and DEI in just 15 minutes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining. Thanks, Irma.
Thank
Bye.
you.